is Mark Fowler. I'm the lead pastor at First Church in Madison. Last Saturday, Susan and I went on our weekly venture out, our weekly date to the grocery store. It becomes the great adventure of the week, and we realize how limiting that can be. At first, it wasn't so limiting. It was kind of exciting. Our cart was full. We had planned out the meals. Now when we go, sometimes we simply wander through the aisles and think it's the same stuff. Last week, there was an experience that helped me to reflect on our feelings together. We were coming around the corner out of the produce area and went to the place where packaged meats were. There was a mother that was standing there. We were all masked, socially distanced, very careful. And she was just staring at this open space where the hamburger, the ground beef, should have been. Just staring. I stopped 6 or 8 or 10 feet away because that's what you do at that particular grocery store. She kept staring. All of a sudden she came to herself. Perhaps I cleared my throat behind my mask or made some gesture because it had been a bit of time, and she just started to cry. Her head went down. Her eyes closed, and I assumed that's what she was doing. I asked her if she was okay, and she said, "Oh, I don't know. I do this every week. I am the master, the mistress, the queen of hamburger. I can make it into anything. And it's not here. It's just not here." And then I thought, even if it was, I don't care. I don't have a recipe. I can't do what I usually do, and I usually look forward to it, but I just don't care. I began to say something because as I was passing the meat case, I saw that they were preparing a whole tray of packaged ground beef. And just at that moment, they came as if a miracle. Not so much. It just needed to be refilled. The butcher put it there in the rack, and she just looked at it in the same way that she had looked at the empty rack. She looked at me and she said, "I just don't have the energy to care." As I had come in that particular market, I had looked in the magazine section, and I had this wonderful new magazine. Cook's Illustrated, all-time best ground beef, and I showed it to her, hoping that she would stop crying. No, it made it worse. She wasn't sure that would do any better. Well, clearly I brought it home, thought that I would use it in the interim week, put it on the stack of books that I was very excited to read, and all of them have gone unopened. I haven't really had the energy or made the time to read these or invest in them at all. Well, clearly it was on my mind, and this reminds me more of that interchange than to read through all of the important best recipes. Oh, that's very nice. I'll get to these after a while. We came around into the spice aisle, Susan and I. Susan had waited a little bit. She must have been looking at something else, and there was another person, and they were standing in front of that vast array of spices with that same look. Just looking. And I wondered what was happening that day. I came around the aisle, I saw her there, had that wonder, and then realized that the market had changed the spice rack. They were different spices by a different provider. And it was amazing. And I said, whoa! And she snapped out of her doldrums, I guess, and she said, yeah, I guess that's the right word. Whoa! And then she disappeared. I think we're all in a similar place. We're in a place where our inside compasses are all strange. We live in isolation one from another. Because of this virus, we are protected from one another. Our worlds have grown very small. I think we're tired of the news, overly tired of the news, or being on screens with one another. We've been trying to figure out what is happening to us in this isolation. There is an old word, a word about a spiritual disposition. It comes from the monastic tradition of the Desert Fathers, those who in the early years after Christianity was no longer a hunted sect, wanting to get closer to God, they went out into the desert, out into isolation, so they could have their time and their space to be with God alone. And that loneliness, that realization of where we are, is similar to where we are today. The world has dramatically changed, and we are in isolation, even if we are with those whom we love, or we are able to see our best friends. So much in our world has changed. We've called it Blur's Day because one day simply runs into another. We're not even sure what hour it is. Far too often I'm waking up in the middle of the night, wide awake. Nothing's on my mind, nothing to do. But what difference is this hour from that hour? I've been reading this book by Kathleen Norris that helps me to understand this issue of acedia and what might be going on in my own world and in your world, because many of you have shared these very same stories. When I began to feel this way, and it happened very much so when we turned from summer into September, and it was really clear that September was going to yawn on through the winter and even into the spring and perhaps into next September. And I know I'm not supposed to think that way as a leader. I'm supposed to keep our spirits high and move us on. But there is that reality. My Protestant work ethic in which I was brought up says, bucket up, buttercup. Put on a smile, get out of bed, get dressed, and do it. But that covers up these feelings that we have. And this acedia, this spiritual morphine is what they call it, protects us from these feelings, because what the monks discovered is that when we are in this isolation, an isolation that we can't just easily leave or power our way through it, we've come face to face with our own limitations, our own mortality. And the way the monks asked us to deal with these issues is to come face to face with our mortality. Not to be morose, not to be fascinated by it, but when we realize that we are people of limitation, then we realize that each and every moment is a gift of God, the gift of life. And the spiritual discipline is the question of, what do you cherish in this moment? And I've asked myself that question today. I got up this morning and I watched the readings that we have invited people to do from this congregation. The person who read this morning, I haven't seen face to face in months, and I haven't heard his voice. But I attended to him, and I realized that tears came to my eyes, because the small but very important thing is, this is my friend. We have a relationship and have shared and continue to share life. That's enough. In the middle of the afternoon, I got an email, one of hundreds that I get during the day, from one of our congregation who is struggling with the COVID virus. And there was simply a tender salutation, the tenderness of that relationship, that gives all the meaning of life itself. Coming face to face with our limitation and finding in the middle of it the blessing of life. That is what I need to commit myself to as a child of God, as a follower of Jesus, as one who is in the midst of a pandemic that we don't know when it will end or how we will be, but to cherish those gifts of life which in more robust days I might have easily overlooked. But now they are the most cherished moments of all. God bless you. Bless you in those moments of life. Amen.
Hi, I'm Bobby Fowler. I'm a volunteer in the communications office here at First Church, and we're glad you're here. We're eager to hear from you. So if you have comments, questions, or suggestions about our virtual offerings, please contact me at bobby@fumc.org. Or if you'd like to know more about our other offerings at First Church, just contact us and we'll get back to you. Thanks for being here. God bless.